everyone. We're here for another episode of Faith and Life
Unscripted.
We've got a really awesome couple with us today, Sam and Missy Hege. Dear couple to us. I'm going to let Chelsea explain to you how we met these good folks.
So I started a new job, and I think I'd been there for a few months, and I kept noticing in the parking lot the sticker, and it was our church symbol. I was like, how am I going to find out who this person was? And I remember going by your car one day, Missy, and you were sitting there, and I was like, okay, she's blonde, but I didn't interrupt because you were having a conversation. So I think it was the next time I was there, literally you were just walking down the hall. So I said, are you the one with the car with the Two Cities sticker? She said, yeah. I was like, yes. And then we probably talked in the hall for 30 minutes.
We did.
Yeah.
I remember the Friday before you talked to me on Monday, I was like, there's a Two Cities sticker going out the driveway. So
Yeah.
I was glad you came and found me.
Yep. And then asked if you were in a community group, and you were?
We were, but we were traveling. We were going a little further away from home, and Sam's work schedule was getting crazy. And so we were having a hard time meeting that night. You guys met on a different night, a little closer to home in our community. So I was like, do you guys have room for new people?
Like, yeah. And I think we had just sent all another group. So we had
Just about.
Yeah, we had open spots. And I was like, yeah, just come visit, see if we're your people.
Yeah.
Here you are.
Yep.
Yeah, we're glad to have you guys.
And we're glad to be here.
Quite an addition. Sam and Missy actually were at another church for many years and helped with the youth. Very integral part in the leadership there with youth. And we're just glad to have them. A wealth of knowledge and wisdom. So we're excited to open it up today about marriage specifically. So if you haven't noticed, I'm wearing a really cool shirt. It says Lexington as it is in heaven. And as we're talking about our community groups, that's one of the biggest aspects that we really are drawn to at Two Cities Church is just community and doing life together. And we're coming to Lexington in September. So if anybody's interested, let us know. We'll plug you right in.
Oh, yeah.
So let's jump right in. Sam and Missy, Chelsea, you got some thoughts for them?
Yeah, we would love to hear about y'all's love story and just how you met. And did y'all know immediately, or how did all that play out?
Okay.
One of us did.
I will take this.
The immediate.
I did not. I will share. So my family started at our old church when my senior year in high school. Sam had been there since before he was born. The youth sang in the choir every Sunday night. I did not. And we didn't come until midway through the school year. And so I would be sitting in the pew by myself, waiting on my friends to come down. So one day I look over, you just casually turn your head. And there's this guy, and he's all stretched out on the pew.
I was comfortable.
And, yeah. And he looks at me, and he goes, why aren't you up there singing?
I don't know if the gesture happened just like that, but
it did. And I have to preface, there were some yellow dress pants.
Off-white.
They were
Off-white. Let's
hell
just say
yellow.
that. Off-white.
And a burgundy members-only jacket involved.
All right.
It's a great jacket.
It was 1988, so I can date us.
He was a doll, yeah, that's
It
sure.
probably was, but I didn't think so. And I just remember thinking, who is this guy talking to me and why? So when he said, you should be up there singing, and I said, I don't sing. And I was not very nice. Yes, you can have it.
Okay. That part of the story for me was when I grew up in the church there, all the teenagers sang.
Yeah.
Guys or girls didn't matter. So what I would do is when we were singing like that, everybody was up there singing. I was in the college career age at that point.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just sitting there over in the wing of the church and stuff. And I'm sitting there and I got my arm propped up and I look over and I see this beautiful girl sitting in the middle of the pew by herself. I'm like, what is she doing? There were all the other teens. I knew she was a senior or something at that point. But the way I remember it is I said, hey, why aren't you up there singing? And she says, I don't sing. And I said, sure you do. All girls sing. And in my mind, and she says, well, I'm a girl and I don't sing. So I took my members only jacket and I zipped it up. I was like, it just got cold. And I said, and I went home that night, Matthew. I went home that night battling in my mind, like, I really like this girl, but she didn't want to give me the time of day to start with. And me and God had to talk about that. And he put this thought in my mind. She just don't know me yet. And that's why I'm trying to build my confidence back up yet, you know, because she just has shut me down. So it took her a while to come around, but she did.
It did. And so honestly, what happened was I don't remember seeing you again until that summer. So I'd graduated high school. They were like, hey, we're going to have a cookout with college and career. You new graduates, come on. And I remember going, and then at the end, we were at a park. People were playing baseball. At the end, we were all just kind of standing around talking. And he was a little quieter then, but we didn't have pale yellow dress pants. I will be honest. The Levi's were a much better fit for him.
He was still recovering from being shot down.
He was. He was.
And
so at that point, we just started, like we would talk, and what happened was I didn't have a car. So the college and career would go out to eat after church on Sunday night. And my parents would go home, and he and another guy would be like, well, we'll give you a ride. You're on the way home for us. So that started a friendship where, you know, we'd ride in a car to a restaurant or ride in a car back, and he'd drop me off. And I was dating somebody. You were dating somebody at the beginning. You were, because then I remember when he came and told me he broke up. So I was like, oh, I'm so sad for you.
Trying to give me a shoulder to lean on at the time.
Yeah. But what started to turn the corner for us was we had a lock-in. I don't know if people even still have those anymore or not, but we had a lock-in with the college and career, New Year's Eve. And there was a person who had asked him to a banquet. And he said, well, I'll just go as friends. I kind of like someone else. And we're sitting in the gym, and she's talking to me about it. And she said, I kind of like him. And if he's God's will for my life, I'm willing to wait for him. Now, I don't know. I know I've never in my life, but had this happen. But immediately these words went through my head. No, he's God's will for my life. And you want to talk about something blowing your mind? You're like, what? Where did that just come from?
Well, they stayed in your head. You didn't tell her this at the time.
I didn't tell anybody. It just stayed in my head.
Yeah.
And so I think at that time our church had Awanas. And so we both helped out in Awanas. And I remember thinking in my mind, like, I'm cheating on my husband with this other boyfriend, but making no strides up with him.
And that was some things that she told me the other night. We were kind of talking, getting prepared about some of this, you know, that she told me that. She's like, you know, I felt so bad at the time because I did feel like that I was cheating on you with somebody else at the time, because I'm like, okay, I'm glad you changed your mind. But it was an interesting time for sure, because I was seeking her as much as I could too, and trying to get her attention. But I knew she had to change things from her perspective, her mindset, where she was with her boyfriend. And I went into it like that, thinking, I'm not going to pursue you so much that you are two-timing. You know, if you're not going to give up something else. Yeah. Because I wouldn't want to be the guy that's getting two-timed on. Yeah. Either. Yeah. And you wouldn't want to be the lady getting two-timed on either. Right. But wasn't long after that, I guess we went to...
It was the end of March, 1st of April.
End of March, we went to the Wilds camp on a college career retreat. And it's for the weekend. And we went down, and she rode with me down, and we had my brother and somebody else in the back of the car with us too. So we rode down and had a good time with everything going on at camp as always. But there was a few turning points and for that weekend for us that kind of solidified.
And this one's my turn.
Okay.
So the guy that I was dating wouldn't come out and say he was an atheist, but he would come to church Sunday nights despite my parents, because he knew they couldn't tell him he couldn't come to church. And I knew I shouldn't be dating him.
Was that like a conviction for you because you were very involved with your faith?
Yeah. And in my mind, looking back, I'm thinking there was never a point in my time in my life where I would have ever accepted that. But I did. Yeah. I allowed it to happen. And I'll be honest with you, it did not help that my parents couldn't stand him. So parents need to tread lightly when your kid is dating someone you don't care for, because the more you push at that, the more
to the fire.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that was a lot of it. But we go to the Wilds, and every morning there's this time for devotions, and it's quiet, like the whole campus. Everybody goes and does personal devotions. And he was like, hey, do you want to do a devotion together? I'll never forget. We went out and sat in this huge field. We sat on a bench and we did devotions together. And in my mind, I was like, wow, I didn't know I could have this. This is such a beautiful thing. And all right, now to tell what a good guy he is and what a stupid person I was, we kind of talked briefly over the weekend. And I said, well, listen, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So it might take me like a month to break up with this guy because he hasn't really done anything bad. And I think how bad, looking at how we can get involved in sin, that we allow something to be like, he's telling me he doesn't believe in God, basically. And I'm saying he hasn't done anything to make me mad.
Right.
But he was like, all right, I'll give you time. God puts his hands in things sometimes when we're like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. So within a week, we had a situation and this guy did things he had never done, made some comments and actions at my parents when I wasn't there. And it was one of those moments where it was, I don't ever want to see your face again.
Yeah.
And so it was almost like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And God went, here you go.
Yeah.
Let me solve this problem for you.
You really saw the providence of God.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, you see, it's easier to see in the rear view than it is in the windshield.
Oh,
And it sounds like that's the background of your entire story. You didn't know what she was thinking and she didn't know what you were thinking. Yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of stories start that way.
And so then 14 months later, we got married.
Good times after that. Yeah. And I guess leading up to that point, too, before we got married, we were planning on just trying to build a house, 2 years out maybe. But God intervenes again and crazy ways sometimes that you don't see possible. But I had come home one night from a long day's work and she had called me up and just wondering what was going on. I'm like, I got to get out of here because my mom, bless her heart, she was just doing things that moms do and asking things and stuff like that. And she didn't realize that I had a long day that day and she had asked me to do a chore of some sort. And
Met him in the driveway.
Met me in the driveway. I didn't even get out of my car. I just had got my car back in and she met me right there with the task to do. And you say, what was it? What was the task? It really wasn't nothing huge other than the car she wanted me to wash, which was her big Hank at the time. A 71 Oldsmobile. It was huge, but you say, why would that make you do that? Right. Mm-hmm. Well, it was just something that pushed me over the top because she was just asking something simple of me in her mind. But I was like, no, we got to go because it's the little things sometimes that stack up. Mm-hmm. And that's, even in marriage, sometimes that happens, right?
That's right.
The little things can back up like that and you don't even realize it until all of a sudden it's a big thing. Then it's a blow up.
Yeah.
So I called her and I said, call your dad back and call the guy he knows on that house and let's get something going. So that's what we did. So it wasn't 6 months after that, we got married. We moved it up.
That reminds me, my mom used to always say, don't sweat the small stuff. I think it was a book that women read. But I think it's important that we address the small stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Because the small stuff's what makes big stuff typically. And it's the little just foundational things in our everyday lives that can explode. So we have to handle it early and often, as I say, with conflict in marriage.
Right.
What are some of the foundational things that you guys did early in your marriage that you feel like shaped your marriage and kind of contributed to its longevity?
I would say, obviously, going to church, praying, being involved with youth and stuff like that at an early stage in our marriage was a big part of that because we was plugged in. We got plugged in at an early stage and you didn't have time to think about a whole lot of other stuff to get weighed down. If you're teaching Sunday school, you're in the scripture. You're at a deeper level. And I'll tell that to anybody. Anytime you're teaching, you're definitely teaching, preaching, whatever, you're taking it to another level.
Yeah.
But that was something for us. And you got anything going?
We have we were not as young as you guys were when you got married, but we were young. We were 19 and 21. Mm-hmm. We turned 20 and 22. So I was halfway through college and he was working. We had people who, I think you guys said in your podcast, that people questioned you.
Yeah.
I'll never forget one night we were out to eat with College and Career and we were talking about, we had a joint savings account right before we got married because we were putting money in it to get prepared for life.
Yeah.
And somebody was like, well, what if you don't get married? And we're like, but
that's not an option.
Right. It wasn't.
It wasn't.
And he didn't come from divorce, but both of my parents, my mom and my stepdad, were both divorced previously. So I'm like, we're not ignorant to that fact. We know that divorce happens. So it made us be more mindful
Mm-hmm.
Same for us.
Yeah. And it was like, we're not hiding our heads in the sand.
Yeah.
And we are looking to God to form. We started from the beginning. Our faith was just ingrained in everything that we did.
Mhm.
Does that mean we were perfect at all? But
Yeah.
it was just serve together, just God was just that third person that just was a part of our life.
Yeah.
And we determined that from the beginning.
Even though like my parents weren't divorced or anything of that nature, they still weren't perfect by no means.
Yeah.
So you still got troubles and things and heartache that goes with some of those relationships. But me and her both had really good relationships with our grandparents. And I've told you this, my grandpa he was my person, my go-to guy that I would just love to emulate and be like.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was that close to God and he was just salt of the earth kind of guy.
Yeah.
And just over and above helping people, doing things, even down to the kids in church. And when he got older, he was like the chewing gum guy, that type of person where all the kids run to him, but just every aspect. And I love the fact that he was an open book to even me when I was at a younger stage in my life and was able to talk me through a lot of things that I thought he wouldn't understand because he was older.
Yeah.
But honestly, he had more wisdom than I could imagine on those topics and subjects.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot with the divorce situation. Matthew came from divorced parents. I did not. And kind of like y'all, you can bring so much from each of those situations to the marriage because even though my parents and your parents, Sam, were together, there's so many things that we still would want to do differently.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one thing I like about that aspect of marriage is that you come from totally different families and you come together and break generational curses or do things better. Even, our parents were not perfect. They raised us the best they could, but we also know how to learn from that.
You look at, these were the things that were great growing up. These are the things that we've seen in family and friends that work in a marriage or a parenting. These are the things that I want to do differently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's so funny too, because parenting and marriage both, you'll hear newlyweds that'll say, well, I'll never do this, or new parents that'll never do this and never do that, or we'll always do that. And then when you get the realities of life, things are a little different typically than what you think. Well, tell us how your faith inspired your marriage, particularly from the get-go. How did you implement your faith in your marriage from the start?
I think one of the things we talked about was, when we reached that point, we were like, you're my person. We want to be together. Number one, you're going to get married. We're not going to live together. That is not what God calls us to do.
And that's not popular this day and time. Sometimes.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, right.
And even then, there was some of that going on in the backgrounds.
Oh, sure.
But it wasn't as out there as it is now.
Yeah, it was definitely counterculture.
Right. And I think we strove to, what does God call us to do as a married couple? Just being faithful. I mean, even just in attending church, doing devotions, tithing, serving. I think we have found over the years, serving together has been huge, but it's just being very mindful, praying for each other sometimes when you don't want to.
Yeah.
And that's awesome because there are a lot of attributes people don't learn until later on in marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of have to struggle through those. I feel like we did that because he was more involved in church than I was. And I kind of had to regrow in my faith. But I love that about y'all, that you were solid from the get-go.
Well, he was in church, like I said, from before birth. My mom and I got saved around the same time, but I was young. So basically from 5 up, I was in church. So we did see that in our family.
She got saved like at 5 and I got saved at 11. So that was just embedded in us in the beginning.
Mm.
Yeah. Very early.
Right. So there wasn't even that much of an option to be thinking about something different as we were planning which direction we were going to go together.
I remember we hadn't been married very long and I don't know what he did, but he made me really mad.
Oh, no.
And it was one of those situations where I thought,
It happens.
I would love to draw my feet up and just kick him out of the bed. But he was sleeping just like a baby. And I thought, he doesn't even know I'm mad. So I got up like at 12 o'clock at night and went walking up and down our driveway, which is about 125 feet off the road. And all I could hear were these animals over in the woods.
God put them there.
Probably did. Scared me half to death. And I'm like, I could be out here having an affair and he wouldn't even know it. I'm out here. I am not even in the house. And the animal scared me. I had to get back in the house. And I went in and I'm like, I'm still not ready to go lay down. And I reached for my Bible.
Yeah.
So it was, I'm mad, I'm angry, and I'm going to turn to God and go, okay, let me go there was some.
I'm not even sure if you come to bed that night.
I came to bed, but it was a lot later. You wouldn't have known. You had no clue where I was.
Sleeping good.
He was sleeping good. And then what was so bad was the scripture. It was in Psalms, but it was about God being your rock and your salvation, and he would your protector. And in my mind, he was like protecting me from him and his attitude. What I don't even remember that's
okay, so let's just say it right now. I'm not perfect. And we all
neither
right.
one of us are.
That's right.
I may have written that scripture out and posted a couple different places.
Hey, doing that is not a bad idea, by the way, because it sends little reminders like that to your mind on track.
Yeah. So
That's good.
even when we're mad.
Sam, you have been known to just continue dating Missy, continue loving on her in the same ways that you did when you were dating and when you were attempting to win her over. What are some of the ways that you would suggest or encourage us to do that as husbands?
I sleep with one eye open to make sure that she's not walking the driveway in the middle of the night. So, no.
He's still clueless.
Yeah, I do try to go over and above, just thinking about different things that I could do to, like say, keep winning her over. Because it's not something you just do when you're dating or whatever, and you want to keep that fresh as much as possible. And I think one time I got her some roses, and I find out all kind of things about this when I'm getting these roses, right? It was one of my customers at the time. And just for the record, I got a good deal on them. So
I was really mad at first because I thought he spent a lot of money.
We were still young married, at that point.
Force the word.
It was 8 years and 4 months into it. And if you do the math on that, that is actually 100 months, 100 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I got her 100 roses from this customer of mine who was a wholesale customer. And I got the roses for $30.
Nice.
Yeah.
And they came in a big bucket like this. And he said, "You want to put anything else in there with them?" I said, "What's that going to cost?" He said, "Just a few dollars, we could put some baby's breath and stuff like that in there." I said, "Yeah, spruce it up." And he did. And I got it for like $35 or something, whatever it was, nothing bad. But I had been planning this, like when that year turned, then I knew 100 month was coming up. I was thinking about it in January of that year. I'm like, this has got to happen this year. I can't forget this. I can't forget it. I just kept reminding myself all year until I got to that point. And then, of course, that day we would have a meeting at work, right, that morning. And she only worked a half a day. But my meeting I knew was going to be over at 8 o'clock. So when it was over, I hightailed it to Greensboro and got the roses, came back, and I got in everything done and delivered at the school where she was at probably about 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I left at 12. But it was really sweet because everybody's like, "Is it your anniversary?" And I'm like, "No." "Did you guys have a big fight?" And I'm like, "No, I have no clue what this is."
When I dropped them off, I told them, they said, "Oh, you want us to call her up?" I said, No. This is for her. I'm going to let her get the whole thing when it happens. Get the attention from it, really.
Yeah.
He is much more for the grand gestures. Sometimes, because I will just stay over here in the corner, but he thinks of those types of things. He's very mindful.
Well, it takes intentionality.
Yes.
Exactly.
You had to remember. Yeah.
Expected. I mean, there's things like that I've done, and this 10-year anniversary, I've done something kind of crazy, but she was a little worried about that one.
He was anxious. I'm like, he's going to make something. I thought I was going to have to go down on a ball field and be in front of everybody. And I did
the
not.
Warthogs were playing in Winston. And I took her to a ball game on her anniversary.
Yeah.
And she's like, because she didn't really care that much about ball games. So I took her up there, and she didn't know what was going on, other than the fact it was our anniversary. And I told her, I said, "Just relax." She said, I can't relax. I don't know what you're going to do. I was like, "What do you think? What do you think I'm doing? We can't watch a ball game. What are you talking about?" Well, then about the fourth inning, the sign came across the marquee up there, and it said, "Happy anniversary to Sam and Missy Hege." He said, "You deserve the biggest diamond in town."
No.
So it was a baseball game.
It was a baseball game.
Oh,
It was our 10th anniversary. That is something.
Which is the diamond, the diamond is what's 10th anniversary and stuff like that.
As he says that, he got hooked up with this woman at a Hallmark store when we first got married.
Mm-hmm.
And she kept him, like, the first year is this, second year is this. And he would be very mindful like, here's this gift that matches the anniversaries.
It's just about a matter of putting thought into it, you know, and knowing, you know, figuring out what she likes, what she dislikes, and stuff like that. So I didn't even find out till I got her those roses that she didn't really care about.
Roses are like my least favorite flower, but that particular thing, he didn't spend a lot, and it was super sweet, the thought about it.
But 100 of them.
Yes.
No.
They were pretty. I love a wildflower, but I couldn't complain about those.
Yeah.
They were, and it was half red, half white. Beautiful. So honestly, now one of my favorite things is to get in my car to go to work and there's a full tank of gas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I still try to do stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He thinks about what's
It's the little
coming up.
things.
Yeah.
It is.
A lot of times. It's the what can you do for your wife to make her life simpler every day.
We're helping out with the situation right now at our house, and somebody was coming over, and I knew she was going to get up the next morning and have probably a lot of cleanup to do. So I made sure my area was cleaned up and organized, so she didn't have to come in at least clean my area up as well. And then I picked up several other things too along the way, just to make. I mean, it's just little things, you know. That's before work, you know, type thing. And I get up at 4:30 in the morning to go to work, so it's just takes effort. But
Absolutely.
But it is intentionality when it comes to that.
And those are like the little things too. You don't do it so that you can be like, hey, you need to tell me thank you. You
Right.
do it because you want
That's
to
right.
help your spouse.
Out of love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've heard from Sam. Missy, how do you show your love and support for Sam?
I think sometimes I'm like, what do I do? I have to question myself, but I try to look at, I know this is going to be a really hard day for him at work. Let me make sure I have a good meal for him. I grew up cooking in the kitchen with my grandmother, and so I am very much a way to a person's heart is through their stomach.
Through the stomach.
I don't
Oh, yeah.
fix meatloaf nearly as much as he would like, but I do make sure I fix it on his birthday. Or, you know, what does he need? I know he said something about he was out of bananas and he likes to have a banana every morning. So I'm like, oh, I need to get to the store to get a few things that he says he needs. Or another thing, I think work is challenging. Sometimes it can be very frustrating and defeating. And I try to be his biggest supporter.
Oh, yeah.
Like
That she is.
if he's really discouraged, like, oh, this is going on, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Let's talk about your part in this. You are doing the best that you can do, or, you know, just trying to help him not to get defeated.
And your words pick him up more than anybody else's on this earth.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which at the same
Which can
time,
be powerful.
yeah,
one way or
I'm
the
going
other.
to say that my words can also tear him down as quickly.
That's right.
And I have to be very mindful of that.
When she took time at one point when I was having a bad situation going at work and things were just rough on me, but changes going on and different things, she knew I was coming home discouraged. I mean, beat down, discouraged.
Yeah.
And depressed, probably, you know, before it was so diagnosed like it is now. But at a stage where I was pretty rough, just feeling down about myself, my self-worth, everything. And she took the time to actually write a letter.
I don't even remember doing it.
She wrote a letter and just told me of all the things that she loved and admired about me.
Wow.
And it literally pulled me out of the pit where I was at. And we talked a little more about this the other night. I don't know if she realized just what that done for me and my soul, my spirit, and just knowing where, like she says, these are your good qualities. These are things that God has made you for. You know, these are things that He's brought to my attention.
Yeah.
And just telling me thing after thing that she loved about me.
That's so good.
And even my daughter at that point, it was such a big deal that she wrote me something. For my daughter to write me something? Are you kidding me? Come on. I was bad off, right? Had to have been for this to be at this level, but to have that encouragement, it just encouraged me to get back up the next day.
Come on.
Get up the next day. Come on, keep going. Let's get it, you know, because life isn't easy.
That's right.
It comes at you in stages like that. And you just got to be willing to let go, let God, you know. And when she's there supporting you like that, that's why people ask, why do I need to get married? What's the big deal about getting married?
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, I said, I would not have made it as long as I have if it wouldn't have been for her in my corner.
Amen.
And I'm very thankful to God that God put her in my corner for those things as well. So for those hard days and obviously the good days.
Yeah.
So we've had several mountaintops and several valleys.
Yeah.
But you're going to have that if you're married or not. But why wouldn't you want to have that in a marriage setting, knowing that person is solid for you?
Oh, yeah.
Like we're committed to each other. It's not just about okay, I don't like the way you treat me today, so I'm going to leave and be done with you and just give up.
That's not an option.
It's not an option.
Well, I think it's all about serving one another. And I was thinking, you're talking about how she really built you up.
Oh, yeah.
And how she pulled you out of a pit.
Right.
What is a more beautiful picture of that than Christ?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's literally
Yeah.
the whole picture of the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what we're called to as husband and wives, is to serve one another. And for you to serve him like that, Missy, is just amazing. I've told Chelsea before, and I think I said it on our previous podcast, but where I'm weak, I hope she is strong.
Mm-hmm.
And where she is weak, I hope I am strong. And,
Right.
and like you said, it comes in waves.
I think that's a great lead into our next question about 34 years of marriage. You've come through a lot of challenges. So can y'all think of a challenge where y'all had to really rely on each other in your faith?
We had a situation, Jessica was along, so she was,
7 or 8 years probably we've been married.
yeah, we'd been married that long. So she was young. And I have to say, I think that is one of the most difficult times in a married couple's life is when your kids are young,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
because it is exhausting. And what we found was we were hanging out with a group of friends who were good. They were our church friends.
Love them.
One of the things we started doing was we would get into guys versus girls. And it was argumentative, bickering, little things, stupid things.
And I don't know about you, Matthew, but I've got a little bit of a competitive side to me as well.
Oh, yeah.
So,
We've had game night with them, we know.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we can get competitive, right? And she has that competitive side too. But sometimes we all want to be right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you can't all be right, or what are we going to give up for that person to say, okay, let's just end this right now. As far as the conversation, let's don't keep pushing that all.
Mm-hmm.
But we did. We brought it home. It would start out as we're just having dinner with friends and being silly. And we would come home and it was just constant. Whatever he said was wrong. Whatever I said was wrong in his eyes. And there was not a lot of nice, but it wasn't knockdown, drag out arguments. It was, is this off-white or is it beige? And I will say this, we can still to this day, our biggest arguments are over the most idiotic things.
Mm-hmm.
The big stuff is, they're not big arguments.
We are far from.
We still
even
have a long
after
way.
34 years, we are far from perfect.
But
Yeah.
Work in progress.
That's
I
right.
will say this particular time, it just went on for a while. And I remember, I just thought, is this all there is?
Sarcasm was a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole situation where we was shooting darts at each other just all the time, just like, I'm gonna one up you,
Yeah.
whatever it is, just back and forth. And that was a huge part of what was going on. And the Lord had to do a work.
If you would have asked me, I would have said, I love him dearly, but I don't want to be in this marriage. And I remember I was going from one school system to another, and I said to him, because I didn't know what else to do, I said, I don't even know how much I'm going to get paid. But I keep thinking in my mind, will it be enough for me to get an apartment on my own?
And that hit me like a ton of bricks.
And I didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
Knowing that her mind was already at that point.
Right.
Okay. And we'd had all these other discussions earlier in our marriage, but for her mind to be at that point, I couldn't do nothing to change her mind at the time other than pray for her and try to calmly talk to her, and not in a sarcastic way like we had been doing. And I prayed hard for that. And I will tell you this, though, I never once gave up. It was still not an option, even though we was at our worst stage in our marriage. It was not an option for me to give up in our marriage. It was like I had no intentions of ever getting divorced, even with that.
And I really didn't either. I think we weren't talking nicely to each other. We weren't checking in on each other. It was that blowing point. I can't take the way we are right now. And I remember God impressed it upon my heart. You guys probably shouldn't be friends or hang out as much with this other couple. You need to prioritize your marriage.
And that was tough because they were really close friends.
And I'll be honest, I remember praying and I said, God, I can't do it. I can't go and tell these people I can't be their friends. I love them. Once again, if you give it to God, God says, I got you. And it was not easy. God might have us, but he never says like, oh, watch, this could be a walk in the park. It was a year of just plans wouldn't match up. Other couples would be involved and we wouldn't be involved. A year of tears a year of, these are friends we love. It was mourning.
From a guy's perspective too, when we have friendships and stuff, it's different than when ladies do.
Yeah.
It just is. Ladies can go a lot deeper and just dig a lot deeper into each other's hearts and psyches and everything. But I was praying the whole time that God would send somebody else for Missy, because her and this friend was really tight.
Yeah.
Really tight. And they could answer each other's sentences, stuff like that. They were just that close knit. And I knew how much that meant to her. And I was praying for the Lord to do a work in that way, that something would happen where we could still come back together and still have friendships and still have somebody that she needs as well.
Yeah.
That she could confide in. Because we all need guys nights out, girls nights out,
absolutely.
whatever, just to still be your set in a different setting. But that was my prayer, because I knew that was going to be probably the toughest thing that she done, was to try to distance herself from this friend that she was so close to.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it's not that this couple was inherently bad or anything like that. It's just what works for one couple may not work for another couple.
We could laugh and joke and be like guys against girls, and then they were fine. We just were struggling.
Yeah.
It was, no, this has now become our daily routine, guys versus girls at home.
Yeah.
So throughout that next year, less time with friends, more time with each other.
And still being plugged into things at church as well. So we were still doing things with our youth group and other things as well, trying to be responsible Christians from that perspective, even when there was trials going on in our own homes, and you're still trying to go teach the young people, like, I mean, the Lord worked.
That's also your recognition of accountability.
Right.
Yes. You have these youngins to look after and to be examples for, and that's at the forefront of your mind as well.
And that's the one good thing about when you're a Christian like that. I mean, the Holy Spirit is there.
Yeah.
He's there, and he will knock down doors if he has to, sometimes to get your attention.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you know you're wrong and you need to be the one to apologize, and you're like,
Let go of the pride.
Yeah. I've been like that. You absolutely have to do
and he is
it.
better at it than I am. There's times when he'll come and go, I know I need to apologize, and it probably really should have been me. I've done it a few times, but he is more apt to do it than I am.
Keep the peace, people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peace.
That's right. And just thinking about finding a life partner, someone to marry, to look for someone that you can go to battle with.
Right.
It's so important to be able to take on the world. You have to be able to battle with them, but that's not battle against them.
Right.
And so to be able to fight these battles that come, because they're going to come. You've seen it more than we have in the years that you've been married, but they're going to come. It's not if, it's when. When you can fight those battles together and be one as God created us to be,
Right.
you can really take on a lot more than you think you can by the power of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Conversation. That's what we had an argument last week on our anniversary.
On the day.
Day of our anniversary, and we go out to eat, and I was like, I'm so mad at you right now. It's once again silly, dumb things. But what we found, and I looked at him at one point, I said, later we're going to be able to laugh about this.
Yeah.
And we were, before dinner was served. We were laughing. It was still a little, but communication. There are a lot of miscommunications.
Mm-hmm.
I think he means this when he doesn't. He thinks I mean this when I don't. So having a conversation every once in a while, hey, we need to talk about this. So we have learned over the past year, we've gotten much better having really hard conversations.
Right.
Yeah.
We did not do that as much when we were younger.
Yeah.
And
We
sometimes
could have got thorough on that earlier in our marriage, would have probably helped a lot,
Mm-hmm.
to have some of those conversations. And I would just say, ladies, whatever you do, if he has to get up early, please don't start the conversation at 11:30 at night. Because sometimes that happens and he will be totally wore out. But he'll endure it.
Yeah.
But if he dozes off, don't blame him. And the same thing for guys. I think sometimes we can, if I'm a morning person or whoever's the morning person.
You're always going to have a morning person and a night person get married, I think.
Yep.
I woke up one time and when we were early married and I'm ready to go. Like in the mornings, just looking around, sun's up, let's do something. She looks over and she opens her eyes, sleepy like that at me one time. And she looks at me like, hey, you awake? What you want to do is get some breakfast. Let's go get something. She's like, I am not awake. I said, your eyes were open. I know they were. From that perspective, you got to respect their cycles as well when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Cause
Well, early in the marriage, you start finding out how different you are. In dating, you're like, oh, we have this in common and this in common. And
Because
then
you're
when you
looking
get
for
married,
those things. And then when you get married, you're like looking for the differences.
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, you figure them out. Well, tell me, how have you guys grown individually and in your marriage over the last couple of years?
I would say one thing that's helped us is when we're doing our devotions and things like that, we actually tend to do separate devotions. Some, and then we'll come together and talk later about the ones we've done, because her brain works a lot different than my brain does.
Sure.
So she could read 2,000 novels in 1 week and it'd be fine for her. That's not me. I would tell me about what I need to do, and I will just go out in the yard and we'll do it. But there's different perspectives. But I think that helps us to be able to do that and come together, and being involved with community groups, things like that.
Yeah.
Is one surefire way to keep you in tune with each other, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of times when we leave our community group to go home, conversation's still going on.
That's right.
And it's still going the next day.
Sometimes that's where it starts.
That's exactly right. Because now you're making it personal. You can apply what we just talked about.
Yeah.
With somebody who lives with you and knows how you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Accountability is
Yeah,
Exactly.
it is. So we make time. We have time for ourselves. I think that's important.
Yeah.
We have time with each other, and then we have corporate time with others. But we have found that
Family,
to be really
friends, things like that.
Yeah.
I think it's very important. I know, at least for guys and girls too, but for you to have that one or two persons that you can have that good, deep conversation with.
Yeah.
And just
Super important.
and just get deep with and talk about anything with, really.
Yeah.
But know also that that person isn't just going to be talking to you to suffice you, but they're biblically based as far as their interpretation of what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And I've had some of my friends say, like, that don't make sense. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Or yes, so that's a touchy subject, but you need to tiptoe through this area.
Yeah.
Or it's like, yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah. You need to support
Stick to you.
growth into you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Not what you want to hear all the time.
No, it's not.
I think that's something else we've done. Like if he comes home from work with a situation and I'm like, how do you show Christ in this? And sometimes I don't want to hear that, but we try to help sharpen each other in our faith and
Sharpen it there.
how do you handle these hard, difficult situations out and about correctly or with God in mind versus letting the flesh take over and going, I'm just going to be mad and treat this person horrible.
Well, on the note of you doing devotionals and doing your Bible reading, is there a scripture that you both feel that really defines your marriage, or personally, is there a scripture that you personally feel like is your life verse?
I like Joshua 24:15 so much that I've got it on a picture and frame in my house under our family picture.
Yeah.
That's for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
Yeah.
And just going into it with that mindset, I think back to, I challenge everybody to read the first part of Joshua 15 too, and to see, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into that, but it is really good to see how he got to that point in, in his thinking to where, yes, the Lord's done so much for you. And it's okay. For me and my house, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
When he sent hornets to run people out, he sent hornets to clear this city out so the children of Israel could come through. They didn't have to do anything, just walk into it.
Yeah.
Now, for me, once again, going back to having grown up in the kitchen with my grandmother, Psalm 34:8, oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man whose refuge is in him. But I just, in my mind, I visualize this huge banquet table, this beautiful landscape, family coming together and just looking at, like God says, just taste it. See how good this is. There's a book that I read with my students, and there's a part of the book where a person's trying to make a lesson. And he brings all the ingredients for a cake, and he makes the kid taste them individually, like take a bite of this flour, take a bite of this stick of butter or salt. And he's like, that's so nasty. They're horrible. But then he gives him a cake. And I just think God says, look, maybe all the individual ingredients in life, they're not going to be the best. They're not going to be the easiest.
Yeah.
But when you take your refuge in me, when you trust in me, look at what a beautiful life I can give you. Might not be easy, but it's going to be beautiful. And so I feel like that's our life.
God can bring all those pieces of the puzzle, the ingredients that makes up who you are.
Yeah.
and who everybody is, We wouldn't have chosen the hard times we've gone through.
That's right.
Yeah.
We would not have chose those for ourselves.
But we oughtn't be who we are without them.
Right.
No, exactly.
Yeah. So you have a daughter. Tell me how parenting has influenced your marriage, and how have you maintained a strong marriage through the battles and struggles of parenting?
One, we determined, just like we determined when we got married, we're going to take the good and maybe change the not so good from family and friends that we'd seen. We did the same. Like, we like this about our parents, but maybe we'd like to do this part differently. We are going to raise our child to love the Lord.
Yeah.
It was really fun. I don't know a better way to say it. It was just fun. We worked in the youth group before our daughter came to the youth group. So we're like, we're not joining youth group because you're there. We're letting you join our youth group.
Yeah.
But to be able to do missions trips, to serve the Lord alongside our daughter.
Oh, yeah. What a blessing.
Yes. And to see her grow in her faith. And once again, we haven't always been perfect, but it's been. And we talked about this the other night. Sometimes we spent more time with her and not with ourselves. Like, we had a trip one time. It was one night, and I'm like, it's just us. And he's like, oh, let's let her come. It was 2 against 1.
She was daddy's girl.
She was.
She was.
But I think it's that thing of, we have enjoyed the dynamics of just adding to our family, enjoying the blessing that she is, that God has given us, seeing her grow. She's married and has a 2-year-old and has a new one coming along. It's been a joy to see her take things that we've done and do differently.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
She's recently been married as well. So seeing her and the effort she went into choosing her husband, that says a lot about Missy too, I think. That way that she had standards, and Missy and myself try to put those standards in there. And I don't think she could have got anybody better.
Yeah.
So it's,
Praise the Lord for that.
and that's an answered prayer.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of struggles within that. Oh,
Yeah.
a dad of a daughter, I pray for all of you.
Yeah.
I pray for everybody that's got a dad of a daughter, or that's a dad of a daughter. So.
Yeah. What values and principles did you strive to instill in your daughter, and especially regarding marriage?
I can think of just not being a liar. That's one thing. Being truthful. I had some life lessons that went with some of those situations.
Oh, yes.
But they don't trust you. And you can't trust them. Then, that was part of our life lesson that I was trying to teach her at the time, that, just because you say this and then you back out the last second because it's not fitting what you want to do or whatever. Now I'm just going, no, I didn't really mean that. No, actually you said that, so you meant it.
Right.
But no, I really meant no, you said that. So we went through a lying phase at one time. So just trying to reiterate the importance of being truthful and friendships and stuff that's going to come her way later on.
Yeah.
I'm like, if your friends can't trust you, if they tell you something that needs to be not retold again, they don't want you to go out and gossip about something of that nature.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of things like that. And Missy, can you think of anything?
Well, I just think with all of that said, just trying to impress upon her, your actions affect your testimony.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good.
And so if you can't be trusted, why would someone want to hear the gospel from you? But then wanting to impress upon the importance of putting God first in her life,
Right.
which led into when she was looking for someone, one of the first things they had in common was their faith. And though she had really long conversations, they had hard conversations about where they were in their faith, what that was going to look like in their wedding or their marriage. And so we feel like we wanted for her to be as successful as possible. That was going to be one of the most important things. And I think definitely got that. She might have got a lot of other stuff from us, but she definitely got that lesson of God first.
Yeah. Right. Which is the most important.
And she has an incredibly good servant's heart.
Yes, she does.
And I think that's what we strive for.
That's an evident thing that you guys have. I just love to walk up to the church and see you guys serving together at the door.
Mm-hmm.
Just to see you both smiling together. That's just such a blessing to see a couple that's been married for 34 years that is serving together and having a servant's heart.
It is.
It's important.
Yeah.
Whether it's used to be in the choir, in the youth group, holding the door. We've been the most relaxed servants recently. We just serve at the door and we greet people, but it's together.
Yeah.
It's doing life together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Simply doing life together. Not just doing life together, but making God a part of that.
Oh, yes.
So that's what makes it important.
Yeah. Well, looking back on your marriage, what do you believe are key factors that contributed to the longevity of your marriage so far?
Humor.
Humor would be.
God
gotta have it.
definitely, faith, but humor.
Yeah.
There's a lot of humor.
I know that God has a sense of humor for sure, just to deal with me. Okay, to deal with us.
Oh, yeah.
Either one of us.
But that is huge, to be able to have fun and laugh about things and try not to take everything the other person says personally and seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So much to that level where you arguing about something that's stupid.
Yeah.
We still do, you know.
That's why.
Yeah.
It happens. Things come up, but then realizing it.
Yeah.
And then being able to take it to the next step and say, you know what, that was stupid. I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Which leads to grace.
How many times
There's gotta be
God
some
give us
grace.
So
Yeah.
And that goes both ways. When you don't want to have grace, that's when you got to remember, okay, first, Christ had grace for me, but then I have to say, I just want to be mad right now. But then I have to think, oh, last time I did something really dumb, he had grace.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a minute to remember that.
Yeah.
But yeah, grace for each other and some patience.
obviously love is a part of that. Just showing each other love and, and looking past their imperfections and knowing like, okay, I know she just made me mad about something. I still love her more than any person on this earth.
Yeah.
You know, and when you're raising kids too, you got to make sure that you don't let that love get divided, because that can be a big thing. Kids can use you against each other.
Oh,
sometimes, right?
For sure.
So that's something that me and her determined early, is that if our daughter come to us and said, hey, I want to go somewhere, and I told her no, and then she goes to her mom and gets a yes, then we come together and find out what's going on, and then we agree with each other like, no, you've already asked your dad. He said no, so we're not going to do that. And it didn't happen that often, but it could have happened more, but we shut that down as much as possible early on and just showed that we were united.
Yeah.
So if you're not united as parents together like that, your kids can just really run over both of you.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So I tell our boys, it was your mom and me before you.
That's right.
And after you leave this house, it'll still be your mom and me. You're not coming between us.
And that's huge, because we are at that age where we heard people go, oh, when you become empty nesters. And we both had moments before our daughter went to college where we had our small mental breakdowns. And I remember going, oh, life as we know it is over. We had so much fun.
Yeah.
Life is not over. You get to enjoy your child as an adult.
Yeah.
But then we're like, we're doing whatever we want to do.
We can do where we want.
Yeah.
You know.
And
only pay for two.
That's right.
not that she dictated or anything, because we love our time spent with her. But it's almost like we became sillier, goofier together. Like, oh, let's go do this.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So that it means a lot to be able to have
I don't want to wish away my kids, but I am excited for that.
Yeah, it is.
It's wonderful. I would say go ahead at least a year out before they move away or do whatever they're going to do to start thinking about that.
Yeah.
Just, okay, we need to be prepared for this, number one, because we're going to have a flood of emotions going through us when your kid leaves the house.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a flood.
Yeah.
But when that flood's done, know that, hey, we can still come together, because that's how we started, was together. And you want to finish strong and still be a good example for them. They come home, whatever, that's fine. But then when they leave to go, okay, it's back to me and mama, you know?
Yeah, that's right. If you had one piece of advice to give to a newly married couple or a couple that's getting ready to get married, what would one piece of advice be for them?
Pretend you're going to be on a podcast about marriage and have conversations on a regular basis about your marriage.
Yeah.
I don't know if my daughter still does this or not. She's a therapist. But I know when they first got married, she said about every 2 weeks or so, they would sit down and go, hey, what's working? What do we need to change? What's a problem? And I know we haven't done that nearly as much as we should, but it's, if you don't talk about it, then you can't fix it.
That's right.
And it's going to fester.
Communication.
Yes, communication, because then that helps with the misunderstandings. Like, no, that's not what I was thinking at all. And, you know, you're mad about something that never was even true. Yeah. So communication, you need to be able to talk. Even I am an avoider. I will avoid conflict like nobody's business. But you've got, he does not. You've got to find time to talk, and you've got to talk about what's working. But you got to talk about what's not working.
Yeah. I would say too, I had somebody tell me that marriage is a 50-50 deal. It's really not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's really 100, 100.
that's right.
You're thinking about that other person as much as you can and what you can do for them. That's the reason she gets gas in her car sometimes, some mornings, right?
Yeah.
Things like that. It's like something extra you can do for this other person.
Yeah.
And if both of you are doing that, I mean, you're both getting that 100% feedback from each other and attention, that you long for. So that's just something. Obviously, keeping God in the center. One of the biggest problems is that people just exclude God from the equation altogether.
Try to add God to it.
Or try to, yeah, exactly. And add to what God said or change something to make it fit their situation.
Yeah.
Where actually God's very clear with what he says. And just because we don't like what it says and it steps on our toes for now, that doesn't mean that we are exempt from that knowledge that we just found out.
Yeah.
We need to still apply that.
Yep.
But people leave God out of the equation and trying to do everything on their own. And then what that leads to, I think in my mind, is kind of a selfish attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Because if let's say you get through a situation, I done it. I climbed that mountain. I did this, but then when they hit that valley on the other side of the mountain, they don't know how to deal with it.
That's right.
Like, then they don't want to take responsibility for the valley
Mm-hmm.
through.
Yeah. So final question for you. I've heard it said that your dreams should always be bigger than your memories. As you look into the future of your marriage, what are you excited for? Because this isn't the end.
No.
No.
So what are you excited for?
I'm still excited to see where God's going to put us together in mission work.
Yeah.
Serving together, whatever we're doing. It's always a mystery what God's thinking sometimes because you don't know what he's thinking, but he knows what's best.
Yeah.
He knows what's coming your way and you get prepared. He prepares you a lot of times to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just excited to be used of him. I think that's kind of both of our hearts at this point because even when we were dating or when we were young married, we came to the conclusion that we wanted to serve God together. Like we both went up at the church at the same time without each other knowing what we were thinking. And we committed our lives to God. We surrendered to God.
And at that time, we thought we were going to go into missions work.
Yeah.
We started taking night classes at a local Bible college. And we were just like, we're willing to go and do this. And then just things we didn't, as time went on, we didn't feel God calling us that direction, but it was like, we want you to, we wanted us to serve where we were.
Serve where we were.
But, retirement is on the horizon.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, oh, what does God have for us as we enter that phase?
Yeah.
And we love being grandparents.
Yes.
Yes. So that's
and that is something else too. We want to be the grandparent like we had.
Yeah.
Good examples
That's right.
we had as well.
Yeah.
And just do the best we can and show our grandson and our granddaughter to be, the love of God and what he can do in their life as well, their lives as well.
Yeah. That's good. Well, that wraps us up. Y'all have any final thoughts?
Yeah, we appreciate you guys opening up this forum like this.
We're glad to have you guys on.
We definitely don't take any part of any aspect of the ministry like this for granted.
Yeah.
Because it's all, from teaching to whatever you're doing, or if you're trying to help somebody else that might be going through a hard time, it's God appointed for you to be at a certain place, certain time.
Yeah.
That type of thing as well. And if we can help somebody, that's what we like doing.
Yeah. Well, we hope this podcast will help somebody. We'll give somebody some encouragement or piece of advice that they can take and apply it to their marriage. We've been extremely blessed to have Sam and Missy, and we're grateful for them coming on the podcast. This has been another episode of Faith and Life
Unscripted.